All right, listeners, buckle up. We're about to dive into some seriously mind-blowing stuff today. We're talking Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah, this place is, it's really turning a lot of what we thought we knew about early human history on its head.
For sure. So we're going to be deep diving into this YouTube video that makes some pretty bold claims connecting this ancient site with a lost civilization.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to, unpack those theories, look at all the details, all the good stuff, and see what you find most interesting.
It really is a fascinating topic. Göbekli Tepe sort of throws a wrench into a lot of our assumptions about what humans were capable of, way back over 11,600 years ago.
11,600. That's
Just try and picture that. This site, it predates Stonehenge and the pyramids by like an insane amount of time.
I mean, that's older than any civilization we thought existed back then. Like, what were archaeologists expecting to find from that period before they discovered this?
Well, the prevailing thought was, humans were just starting to kind of experiment with agriculture, moving away from the whole hunter-gatherer lifestyle.
Right.
So the tools and structures from that time would have been like really basic, reflecting that kind of early stage of development. But Göbekli Tepe, it just flips that whole script completely.
So what did they find instead of like simple settlements?
Picture this. Massive pillars, T-shaped. Some of them are like over 16 feet tall and weigh up to 10 tons each.
10 tons? Are you serious?
Oh, yeah. And they're arranged in these perfect circular enclosures. And here's the kicker. They're all intricately carved with these animal figures, human forms, even some really weird human-animal hybrids.
Wait. Human-animal hybrid. Okay, hold on. Now you've got my attention. We've got to dig into that.
Yeah.
What kind of animals are we talking about here? Like, give me specifics.
Oh, there's a whole menagerie carved on these pillars. I mean, you've got foxes, lions, scorpions, snakes, boars, wild donkeys, gazelles. The list just goes on and on.
It's incredible to think about the level of, like, the craftsmanship involved.
Yeah.
Right?
Especially when you consider the tools they would have had back then. Okay, so back to these human-animal hybrids. Is there, like, any consensus on what they might represent?
That's one of the biggest mysteries surrounding Göbekli Tepe, really.
Mm-hmm.
Some researchers think they might represent deities or, like, mythological figures.
Uh-huh. Okay.
While others believe they could symbolize, like, shamanistic practices or, altered states of consciousness, that sort of thing.
It's like trying to, I don't know, decipher a message from a completely different world. It's wild. Okay, and then there's this one pillar, right? It's called the Vulture Stone. And some people think it holds, like, a clue to Göbekli Tepe's true purpose.
The Vulture Stone is, absolutely fascinating. It's got all these really elaborate carvings on it that seem to depict constellations.
Right.
Almost like an ancient star map.
Whoa, a star map. So, like, a celestial snapshot from, 11,600 years ago?
Yeah. Could it be some kind of, I don't know, like a cosmic date stamp? Sort of like the one they engraved at the Hoover Dam,
Well, that's the theory that some researchers put forward. And the date they think it's pointing to is, it's kind of chilling, around 12,900 years ago, during something called the Younger Dryas period.
The Younger Dryas? Oh, okay, yeah. That was a time of, massive climate change, right? Like a mini ice age or something that just, hit the Earth out of nowhere.
Exactly. And there's actually growing evidence from, ice cores and sediment samples suggesting that there might have been a comet impact during that time. And that impact, it could have triggered those abrupt climate shifts.
Hold on. A comet impact. Now, are we talking like civilization-ending kind of event here?
Well, the theory is that, a comet or maybe fragments of one struck the Earth. And this would have caused widespread devastation. I mean, we're talking massive tsunamis, fires. It would have had a catastrophic impact on any existing human settlements. And it could also explain that the sudden plunge into a colder climate that we were talking about.
That's a pretty dramatic scenario. It kind of makes me think about all those flood myths that you find in cultures all around the world. Could they be based on like a real event? Maybe even this Younger Dryas impact?
It's definitely a compelling connection, yeah. Imagine the collective trauma of an event like that, right? Passed down through generations in the form of, stories and warnings. It's not hard to see how those memories might eventually morph into the flood myths we know today.
Okay, so we've got this mysterious site with all these intricate carvings, a possible comet impact, and widespread flood myths. But where does this whole idea of a lost civilization fit into all of this?
Well, this is where things get really speculative. The YouTube video we're talking about, it proposes a pretty bold and somewhat controversial theory.
Okay, lay it on me.
It suggests that Göbekli Tepe wasn't built by, simple hunter-gatherers, but by the survivors of a technologically advanced civilization.
Whoa.
And that the civilization, they were wiped out by the Younger Dryas impact.
Wow, so they're suggesting that Göbekli Tepe wasn't just a settlement, but something much more significant, like a repository of knowledge, or maybe even like a message from the past.
Yeah, that's the essence of the theory. Imagine a group of survivors clinging to like the remnants of their advanced knowledge, desperately trying to, pass it on to future generations before it's lost forever. They might have seen Göbekli Tepe as a way to like preserve that knowledge, a warning from the past about, the fragility of civilization.
That's a powerful idea. And I think I know what our listeners are thinking right now.
Yeah.
Where's the proof? If this civilization was so advanced, where are the ruins of their cities, their technology, their written records?
Yeah, that's the biggest challenge for this theory. As of right now, there's no direct archaeological evidence to support the existence of a technologically advanced civilization preceding the Younger Dryas.
So are we just supposed to take this theory on faith?
Not necessarily. While the lack of direct evidence is a big hurdle, it's important to remember that absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence.
True.
I mean, our understanding of the past is constantly evolving, right? New discoveries are made all the time.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, look at the discovery of the Monteverde site in Chile. It pushed back the timeline for human presence in the Americas by like thousands of years.
Yeah.
It challenged that whole long-held Clovis first theory.
Exactly. And then you have, the Mayan highway system, this whole complex network of roads that was like only recently discovered, even though experts had insisted for years that the Mayans didn't use wheeled vehicles.
And don't even get me started on those underwater cities like Dwarka off the coast of India or those submerged structures they found off the coast of Cuba. I mean, these discoveries just show that we still have a lot to learn about the capabilities of, ancient civilizations.
Precisely. So while we may not have like concrete evidence for this advanced civilization right now, it's definitely not outside the realm of possibility that something could, emerge in the future.
I guess that's what makes archaeology so fascinating. It's this constant process of discovery, of, piecing together the puzzle of the past.
And Göbekli Tepe is, it's definitely one of the most intriguing pieces of that puzzle. It raises so many questions about our origins, our capabilities, and our place in the cosmos.
Okay, so we've kind of established that Göbekli Tepe raises way more questions than it answers. But one of the biggest ones has got to be this proposed link to the Younger Dryas Impact event. Makes you wonder if that impact was like as devastating as some scientists think. Could there be some connection to those those mysterious carved figures at the site?
It's definitely tempting to draw a connection there for sure. The imagery at Göbekli Tepe, with all that animal symbolism and those weird, those enigmatic human-animal hybrids, you could definitely interpret it as reflecting some kind of traumatic event. A way for like the builders to process and record a cataclysmic experience.
It's interesting that you bring up like the idea of recording something. If this lost civilization, if they really were that advanced, wouldn't you expect to find some kind of like writing or, record keeping? Or is it possible that they, I don't know, used a different method entirely, something we haven't even like thought of yet?
That's a really good question. I mean, the way we understand advanced, it's often tied to like our own technological framework, right? So maybe their knowledge was transmitted through, I don't know, oral traditions or intricate rituals or even like encoded within the architecture of Göbekli Tepe itself. It's a good reminder that, we might not always recognize the intelligence of past cultures just because it doesn't fit into, our modern expectations.
Yeah, it's almost like we're trying to read a book, but it's written in a language we just don't understand.
Yeah.
We can see the symbols, but we can't like grasp the meaning.
That's a great analogy. And just like with, any ancient text, there are going to be multiple interpretations. There's going to be debate. There's going to be, mistranslations. It's a process of careful analysis, cross-referencing, and honestly just acknowledging that we might never have like a complete understanding.
So how does this this YouTube video that we're talking about, how does it approach the idea of like knowledge transfer from this hypothetical lost civilization?
They point to the relatively sudden emergence of agriculture after the Younger Dryas, and also, the development of these more complex societies. They see that as like potential evidence. Like it's as if humanity just got this this sudden burst of knowledge, a jumpstart that just propelled them forward.
That's pretty fascinating. It makes you think of those, those ancient myths and legends about gods or like beings from the sky coming down to Earth and sharing their wisdom with humans.
Exactly. Think about like the Babylonian myth of Oannes. That's the fish god who emerged from the sea to teach humans the arts of civilization.
Right.
Or, the Aztec legend of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god, right?
Yeah.
He brought knowledge and agriculture. While we usually just dismiss these stories as, mythology, is it possible that there are like echoes of a real event in there, maybe a cultural exchange or, knowledge transfer from a more advanced group?
Yeah, that would certainly explain those seemingly rapid advancements we see in human societies after the Younger Dryas. But of course, it's hard to separate myth from reality, especially when we're talking about events that happened so long ago.
Of course, of course. And that's where scientific rigor is so important. We need to carefully analyze the evidence we have. We need to consider different perspectives, and we have to be open to, revising our theories as new information comes to light.
Speaking of evidence, the video spends a lot of time talking about the Younger Dryas Impact Theory. And it talks about the implications for us today. It's a bit unsettling, isn't it, to think that something like that could happen again?
Yeah, it's definitely a sobering thought. And while the likelihood of a major comet impact happening in our lifetime is statistically, pretty low, it's not something we can just completely ignore. Understanding these past impacts, it can help us prepare for future ones, whether it's through, I don't know, early detection systems or even like potential mitigation strategies.
I remember reading somewhere that the Earth, every year, it actually passes through the debris field of that ancient comet.
Really?
That's what causes the annual Taurid meteor shower. It makes you wonder if those shooting stars that we see every November, if they could actually be hiding some kind of hidden danger.
So it's true that we do encounter debris from that ancient comet every year, but, the vast majority of those particles are thankfully really small. They just burn up in the atmosphere.
Okay, that's a little reassuring. But I still can't help but feel like a little uneasy knowing that we're basically, flying through a cosmic minefield every single year.
Yeah, it definitely highlights how fragile our existence really is and how powerful those forces at play in the universe are. But it also kind of underscores the remarkable resilience of life on Earth. I mean, we've survived so many asteroid impacts and extinction events over, billions of years.
Yeah, that's a good point. Life finds a way, as they say. But I'm curious, what kind of warning do you think the builders of Göbekli Tepe might have been trying to, I don't know, convey? If they went through a similar event, what lessons did they want to pass on to, future generations?
It could have been a warning about the destructive power of nature, or maybe the importance of understanding those cosmic cycles, or maybe it was a message about how fragile civilization is, a message urging us to cherish knowledge and learn from the mistakes of those who came before us.
If we entertain this idea that Göbekli Tepe was deliberately buried, could that act itself be like part of the message?
That's an interesting thought. What if it wasn't a warning? What if it was more like a time capsule? A repository of knowledge meant to be uncovered when humanity was finally ready. Maybe they thought that hiding this knowledge, it would protect it from being misused, or, maybe they thought that rediscovering it later on, it would spark like a new era of understanding.
It's like they were planting a seed, hoping that it would eventually grow into something amazing.
Exactly. And in a way, that's kind of what's happened. I mean, the discovery of Göbekli Tepe has captivated the whole world's imagination. It's sparked this renewed interest in ancient mysteries. It's prompting us to re-examine all these assumptions about the past.
It's a really powerful reminder that we still have a lot to learn, about our own history and about the potential of the human spirit. Okay, you know what? Let's take a moment to hear from you, our amazing listeners. What are your thoughts on this potential message of Göbekli Tepe? Do you think it was meant to be a warning? A time capsule? Or something else entirely? Share your thoughts with us on social media. We want to hear from you, and we'll talk about them when we come back.
All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We've been exploring this crazy world of Göbekli Tepe and that potential connection to a whole lost civilization. We've been talking about some really wild theories, and now I'm super curious to hear what our listeners think about all of this.
The response has been amazing, really. It seems like Göbekli Tepe has just, captivated everyone's imagination. There's this real hunger out there to understand our past. and to explore, the possibility of civilizations that came way before our own.
Totally. We've gotten so many awesome comments and questions, and it seems like a lot of you are like particularly interested in this idea that Göbekli Tepe might be holding, a message for us today. So let's kind of dive back into that and see what some of those possible interpretations might be.
One of the most common themes we're seeing in the listener feedback is this idea of like cyclical history, this idea that, civilizations rise and fall, that we're not like immune to the forces that shape the past.
Yeah, that's definitely come up a lot in the comments. People are wondering if Göbekli Tepe is like a warning from a civilization that, maybe met a similar fate to what we might be facing today, whether it's, I don't know, climate change or social unrest or even like these technological advancements that could end up backfiring. There's this sense that that history might be repeating itself.
It's a really thought-provoking perspective, and if we look back at history, we can see so many examples of civilizations that collapsed, right? Or just vanished. And it's often due to this combination of factors: environmental problems, social inequality, resources running out, even warfare.
It's almost like the people who built Göbekli Tepe were trying to say, hey, this happened to us. And it could happen to you too. But it's interesting that a lot of listeners aren't just seeing this as like a warning. They're seeing it as a challenge.
Oh, absolutely. There's a real sense of hope and determination in so many of the comments. People are talking about how we need to, learn from the past to build societies that are more sustainable and just, and to actually use our knowledge wisely, to create a better future.
It's like Göbekli Tepe is reminding us that, hey, we have agency. We're not just stuck in some kind of predetermined cycle of history. We have the power to make choices. To learn from those mistakes, the mistakes of those that came before us, and to actually chart a different course for ourselves.
Yeah. And maybe that's the most powerful message of all, right? It's not just about doom and gloom. It's about, recognizing our potential, our resilience, and our ability to actually shape our own destiny.
And I noticed that a lot of listeners are, they're really fascinated by the whole, the deliberate burial of Göbekli Tepe. They're asking why such a magnificent, site would be intentionally hidden like that. Was it like an act of protection, a way to keep that knowledge safe for some future time? Or was it, I don't know, something else completely?
It's a question that, it continues to puzzle archaeologists and historians. Some people think it was like a ritualistic thing, a way to consecrate the site or return it to the earth. Others think it might have been just a practical decision, maybe to protect it from erosion or looting.
But then there's that other possibility, right?
Yeah.
The one that really gets the imagination going, the idea that the burial was intentional, a deliberate act of preservation, like creating, a time capsule for future generations.
Imagine that. A whole civilization that had the foresight to, to recognize that their knowledge, it might be lost or maybe misunderstood in their own time. So they decide to bury it, to entrust it to the future.
It feels like almost a gesture of faith in humanity, this belief that eventually we would get to a point where we'd be ready to understand and appreciate their legacy.
And in a way, that's exactly what's happened, right? I mean, the discovery of Göbekli Tepe, it's challenged all these assumptions we have about the past. It's opened up these whole new paths for research, and it sparked this global fascination with ancient mysteries.
It's also made us really rethink what we consider advanced or civilized, right? We tend to look at progress in this very linear way.
Yeah.
We assume that being technologically sophisticated automatically means that you're more advanced. But Göbekli Tepe suggests that maybe there are other ways to understand, intelligence and cultural achievement.
Exactly. Maybe the people who built Göbekli Tepe, maybe they had a completely different way of understanding the world, a different way of relating to nature and the cosmos. Maybe their advancements weren't technological. Maybe they were spiritual or social. Maybe they were focused on, community or cooperation, or even just a deep understanding of natural cycles.
It really makes you wonder what knowledge we might be, I don't know, overlooking or just dismissing, just because it doesn't fit into our current way of thinking.
And that brings us back to that idea of knowledge transfer, right? The idea that maybe the legacy of the people who built Göbekli Tepe, maybe it wasn't completely lost. Maybe it was passed down, through oral traditions or rituals, or even encoded within the structures themselves.
It's a humbling thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
To think that we might be carrying these echoes of a lost civilization within us, this legacy that we're just now starting to like, rediscover.
And maybe that's the real invitation of Göbekli Tepe, to look beyond our own limited way of seeing things, to embrace those mysteries of the past,
Yeah.
and to recognize, the interconnectedness of everything.
It's a call to explore, to question, and to stay open to the idea that we still have so much to learn from those who came before us.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Göbekli Tepe, let's remember that the search for knowledge is a journey. It's not about reaching a destination.
And who knows what incredible discoveries are waiting for us out there, right? As we continue to explore the mysteries of our past and the potential of our future. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.